Baseball is America's pastime. It's one of the most popular sports ever, and it's important to know the history, the impact, and the significance of this national sport. So how exactly did baseball begin? Well, the answer is not as straightforward as you might think. Technically, the first official game ever played was on June 19th, 1846, between the New York Knickerbockers and the New York Nine. But that's not when baseball actually began. You see, baseball was not created on one exact day. Instead, the game has evolved over a long period of time. So when did it begin? Firstly, we need to understand that there have been multiple historical records that show people playing sports or games with sticks and balls before. And some of these records trace all the way back to 2000 BC, with some still being played to this day, like polo and shinty hurling. However, these games don't really resemble baseball that well at all. Sure, they are stick and ball games, but none of which look close to or have influenced the game of baseball. Well, what about the games and sports that baseball did evolve from? In that case, the earliest known versions of baseball that historians know of occurred in England around 1600 AD, with sports named rounders, stool ball, Nurin spell, and even a popular sport still to this day, cricket. Then throughout the 1600s and early 1700s, English people began to travel, colonize, and settle into present-day North America. And with them came all of the games that I just mentioned. However, at this point, something strange happened. You see, throughout the 17th century, many different people called these games by different names. Now, as a matter of fact, there have been multiple found diaries and court records from that time that refer to these games as different names, with one of those names being baseball, the hyphen between base and ball, or baseball with a space between base and ball. It wasn't until the year 1744 until the first ever published book mentions baseball, and that book is an English children's book named A Little Pretty Pocketbook by author John Newbery, who is considered to be the father of children's literature, by the way. Afterwards, the game started to evolve and adapt to American culture. By the 1820s and 1830s, people in the US were still playing baseball, but now it was also occasionally referred to as town ball. And this version of baseball looks very similar to the baseball that we know today. And many people argue that this is where modern baseball originated from. Now let's jump forward a decade or so, because this marks a huge turning point in the history of the game of baseball. The year is 1845. And the Knickerbocker Baseball Club still with the space between base and ball, because it actually wasn't until the 1880s and 1890s that baseball as one word started becoming the common spelling for the sport. And then by the early 1900s, Spalding's official baseball guide officially standardized the sport's name to baseball as one word. But we're getting off topic. The year is 1845, and the Knickerbocker Baseball Club in New York, led by Alexander Cartwright, wrote down the first formalized rules that set the foundation for modern baseball. Rules such as the 90 feet base paths, 3 outs per inning for each team, and the foul territory, all of which are still in use in today's game. Do you remember at the beginning when I mentioned the first official game of baseball? Announced June 19, 1846 in Hoboken, New Jersey, and this day marks the first official game of baseball. And keep in mind, not an MLB game. The MLB wouldn't begin for about another 50 years. The game was between the New York Knickerbockers and the New York Nine, where ultimately the New York Nine would win the game with a score of 23-1. Ouch. Now, while this is considered the first official game of baseball, it's not considered a professional game, and that's primarily because the players weren't paid salaries yet. Then came the American Civil War in 1861. You see, before the war, baseball was really only popular in northeastern parts of America, New England. However, when the war began, soldiers that did know about baseball taught it to their fellow troops, and then they even taught it to prisoners of war, meaning soldiers that have always lived in the South that had never heard about baseball got the opportunity to learn and play the game. The soldiers described baseball as easy to set up, good for morale, and an effective way of bonding and passing the time. You see, once the war was over in 1865, soldiers from both the Union and the Confederacy took baseball back to their homes and spread the game of baseball throughout the entire country. As a matter of fact, many historians credit the American Civil War as the biggest reason as to why baseball became a national sport in the US. After that, professional baseball wouldn't begin until the year 1869, with the Cincinnati Red Stockings becoming the first fully professional baseball team with paid salaries. And since then, the game has constantly evolved and is still evolving with new rules and features that gives us the baseball that we have today.